every carpenter needs the right tools, and a master craftsman needs high quality tools in order to produce high quality workmanship. The exact same is true for you as a student. You need the right tools in order to master your craft, and your craft is learning. These days, the best tools are invariably digital tools, softwares that help you to learn more effectively and more efficiently. I'm fully persuaded that you should embrace technologies that make learning simpler, better, and faster, and that you need at least 4 critical tools in your study toolbox in order to do that. They are tools for time management, for note-taking, for reviewing your work, and for referencing sources when you're writing academic papers. In this lesson, we're going to work through a number of these, showing you some of the options you might choose from amongst the tools that are available. In this lesson, I'm going to offer my present recommendations for each of the 4 essential areas in which you need digital tools, namely time management, note-taking, reviewing, and referencing. The recommendations are simply my current preferences. As technology develops, they will likely give way to new and improved options, and when better options appear, embrace them, make the most of them. For the rest of this lesson, I'm going to introduce each category and some of the tools that are available. Settle in your heart that you need to choose a tool for each function, but you don't need to make a final choice yet. When we address each of these aspects of studying in more detail as we progress through this course, we will examine the tools in greater detail. Sometimes the choice of tool will depend on which particular study option you prefer. So reserve judgment about a final choice as we work through this. Tool number 1, technologies for time management. Disciplined time management is a vital part of a holistic study method. To manage your time well, you need a calendar and a diary. Now, of course, you can use a physical calendar and a physical diary if you so wish. But there are advantages to using software, electronic calendar and diary programs. And there are many good ones out there. Maybe you already have a preferred program that you work with and you're comfortable with. By all means, keep using the one you like. And I would encourage you, however, to deepen your understanding of its features and functions. No doubt there are some useful ones that you can deploy that would improve your study time management. So learn to use your program most effectively. The 3 that we would recommend would be the calendar apps by the 3 most widely used software programs, the 3 tech giants at the moment, namely Apple's iCal or Google's Calendar or Microsoft Outlook. They can do everything that you need to do to manage your study time and a whole lot more than you need to do. So I encourage you to pick one of those if you don't already have another program you prefer and learn how to use it. We will return to time management later in the course and give you some ideas about how to use these apps to improve your study effectiveness. Tool number 2, technologies for note-taking. Taking great notes lies at the heart of study success. The question really isn't whether you should take notes, but how you should take them. And until recently, the standard answer was to use a notepad and pen, and then to file your notes somehow so that you could review them. You would then write your notes by hand. If you're going to write them by hand, loose sheets of paper is preferable to a notebook per se because it allows you to rework and maneuver them. But you would use loose sheets of paper and then you'd put them in some kind of a file so that you could arrange them later. In my view, the electronic options are so much better that they make handwriting notes obsolete, unless, of course, you type with one finger, in which case you may want to continue handwriting your notes. But there really are huge advantages to using softwares for note-taking. Let's have a look at some of those options. Before we turn to technologies that you can consider, let me give you some reasons why you should take electronic notes instead of handwritten notes. And I want to offer 6 reasons, 6 suggestions that make electronic notes by far the preferred way of doing this. Number 1, you can type faster than you can write. Well, that's true for the vast majority of people who are fairly comfortable with the technologies that they use. So we hope you can type faster than you write, which makes a very big difference when you're taking notes in a lecture. Number 2, you can concentrate better. Your brain, like every other person's brain, has very limited working memory capacity. And one of the interesting things is that the skills required to type, or the brain capacity required to type and listen, draws on different working memory systems. So you can type and listen more effectively than you can write and listen. When you write, you tend to be switching between the speaker and what you're doing, but you can listen and type quite effectively at the same time. So that means in a lecture context, you can concentrate much better when typing your notes than when handwriting them. Number 3, you can keep your notes handy. So you will always have your electronic notes with you on your mobile device or on your laptop or on your tablet. Wherever you go, you will have them handy. On your phone, for example. So you can review them at any time. You can consult them if you want to jog your memory about something interesting that you learned recently. They are portable. Try carrying your lever arch files of handwritten notes around with you. Not so practical in that space, is it? Number 4, you can rework your notes much more easily if they're electronic. So when you've listened to a lecture and you've made some notes as it's going along, you will have a fairly rough set of notes. One of the good study habits you need to get into is reworking those notes as you study and learn. It's a critical part of making meaningful connections between the ideas, of organizing the material in ways that are more memorable for you, and so on. To do this with handwritten notes, you almost have to rewrite them in their entirety, but with typed notes, especially if you use good apps, it's very easy to rearrange them and rework them and improve them as you go along. Number 5, you can build a knowledge base by doing it this way. Over a lifetime, your electronic notebook becomes an interconnected web of notes that functions pretty much like a second brain, especially if you've taken them diligently over a long period of time. You can store and retrieve information from that knowledge base quite easily using search functions, for example. So your network of electronic notes stored in one place, searchable, portable, always with you, becomes a backup brain, so to speak, in a way that handwritten notes never can. And then lastly, you can easily review your electronic notes. Regular review helps you to encode information in your long-term memory. This is a big part of study success. You don't only want to learn something for the exam. If you want to learn it to be used for the rest of your life, you need to get it encoded into your long-term memory. And electronic note-taking systems give you a suite of tools that you can use to do this. Now, for my take, the last 3 reasons in this list, the ability to rework your notes easily, to build a knowledge base that you keep with you at all times, this interconnected web of knowledge, and to easily review and encode in long-term memory makes the case for electronic note-taking conclusive. Why take notes electronically? There are 6 good reasons, but the last 3 are really critical. So I urge you to consider using an electronic tool for taking your notes. Now we can have a look at some of the good options, and there are many good options out there. What are the best note-taking tools, you ask? I'm going to suggest 3 options. There are no doubt other equally good options. So these are just illustrations, but they are 3 very different kinds of note-taking apps. And you'll want to pick one to use primarily based on whichever type of notes you find most to your liking. And you can make that decision once we've covered some of the mechanics of taking good notes. So which one you choose depends on the style of note-taking that appeals to you, and we're going to look at those later on in the course. Please note though, that none of the three I'm going to recommend, and in fact none of the best note-taking apps, period, are word processors. Although you can take notes on a word processor, it is not the best tool for taking and managing an entire network of notes, because each document is separate and disconnected from all the other notes that you're taking. My three recommendations make provision for your different preferences. So let's have a look at three good note-taking options. The first amazing program to consider is Microsoft's OneNote, which is available on all kinds of devices, so you can use it on computers, laptops, tablets, phones, etc. OneNote is a powerful, flexible note-taking tool that works on all your devices and platforms. You can use it for almost any style of note-taking. So whichever style you prefer, you can take that kind of notes on OneNote, possibly with the exception of mind maps as a preference. I love the flexibility, the power, and the simplicity that it offers. It's easy to rework your notes after a lecture or to update them after you've done further research. So OneNote, which you no doubt already have on your computer, is a really good note-taking tool and worth considering as a preferred tool for taking great notes over a lifetime. The second one is an app that I'm going to refer to many times throughout this course called RemNote. There's a very powerful free version of RemNote, and there's a commercial version that offers a few additional features. Now, RemNote is designed to be a second brain, an electronic knowledge base that mimics your biological one, your brain. In its most basic function, it's a tool for note-taking. So you can take hierarchical outline style notes using RemNote, but that's not really what makes RemNote an amazing tool. The real power of RemNote is that it can take the notes that you've made and turn them into flashcards and use spaced repetition to help you learn them more effectively. It also overcomes the major weakness of hierarchical or outline style note-taking. If you don't know what that is yet, don't worry, we're going to cover it a little bit later in the course. But outline style notes tend to limit your ability to draw connections between different ideas in your notes. In other words, it makes it more difficult to have this integrated, interconnected network of knowledge. Well, RemNote solves that by giving you powerful tools for cross-referencing and tagging and linking different pieces of information in your knowledge base. So RemNote, an amazing tool, encourage you to have a look at it. My third and last recommendation for note-taking, at least for now, is a little app called SimpleMind. Now, SimpleMind is an app for mind mapping and concept mapping, for drawing mind maps and concept maps. It happens to be the one that I know and use. Unfortunately, it's not a free tool. There likely are other options that are just as good. I'm just not as familiar with them. But if you like taking flow style notes or mind map or spider diagram take notes, this tool takes it to the next level. You can use a variety of pre-built templates. You can label links. You can add text and voice notes to the various items. You can use colors and images for visual impact. You can even generate slides from your spider diagrams and present those to colleagues and so much more. So SimpleMind, a very affordable, useful, practical app for taking mind map and concept map style notes. And that is a very effective way of taking notes, although I think that you either love it or you hate it. So it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you like drawing mind maps, consider SimpleMind as a tool for doing that much more effectively. Tool 3 is technologies for reviewing your work. Regularly reviewing your notes is an essential part of the learning process. When it comes to review, the secret to success is a technique known as spaced repetition. More about that later in the course. The two basic methods for review are quizzes and flashcards, and they do something inherently similar. And until recently, there were two preferred apps for quizzing and flashcarding. Quizlet was the preferred app for quizzes, and Anki, A-N-K-I, the preferred app for doing flashcards. And you can investigate these two if you wish. They're still amazing apps. Quizlet is easy to use. It has a very pleasing user interface, but it doesn't have spaced repetition. So that's its big limitation and negative. Anki is a powerful flashcard app, free, works on all devices, does include spaced repetition, and were it not for the fact that there's something better, would unquestionably be our top recommendation here. But there is something better. RemNote is more powerful than Anki and with a bit of skill developed easier to use than Anki. So let's have a quick look at RemNote as a tool for reviewing your work. We already talked about the fact that RemNote is a powerful note-taking tool, but that's only one of its values. RemNote is also a flashcard program with an amazing ability. If you input your notes in a certain way, RemNote can automatically convert your notes into flashcards and then prompt you to review them at scientifically calculated intervals for optimal retention. Isn't that amazing? Man, I wish I'd had this when I was a student. In general, I often prefer to take my notes initially in OneNote and then to rework them into RemNote because the flashcard review system with optimal management of review intervals helps me to commit to memory that which I want to retain long term. The only downside of RemNote is that it is a little bit difficult to learn initially. But once you've mastered the way it works, and there are good help videos, it's really amazing and really powerful. So essentially what RemNote does then is you take your notes in RemNote and you take them in a format that allows RemNote to generate flashcards. And then once a day you go and review your flashcards and it'll prompt you for all the things you need to be reviewing on that day based on how well you've learned them in the past. And eventually, over time, you build up this incredible knowledge base that you're able to remember. So RemNote, my top recommendation as a reviewing tool at the moment. Tool number 4 is technologies for referencing or citing your source materials. This is probably only needed for you if you're working at a tertiary level when you're expected to write essays that are well referenced and resourced, and absolutely invaluable if you're writing a thesis or a dissertation. Maybe an optional tool at other levels of study. What do referencing tools do? I want to share 5 things that they do. Firstly, they store resources. I've had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you recall the psychological trauma and pain, of writing a couple of doctoral dissertations in the days before these tools were available. And one of the things you do again and again and again when you're writing regularly is that you cite the same source repeatedly in various articles, chapters, etc. And each time you want to cite a source, you've got to go and look it up and cite it correctly. Not with referencing tools. With referencing tools like the ones we'll look at, you capture the source once into a database, and from then on, at the click of a button, you can cite that source in whichever document, essay, or chapter you are writing. So it stores all your resources after you capture them only once. That's a massive time saver for anyone who's writing. Secondly, you use them to insert citations. So when you need to reference a source, you then click a button and you choose the resource that you want to cite, and you insert the citation, and the referencing tool will format it according to the style that you are using. Might be APA or Turabian or SBL, whatever the citation style is, you choose that and you get a correctly inserted citation wherever you need it. Thirdly, they manage bibliographies. So just as they manage your citations, so you insert your bibliography at the end of your work. And these tools do something that takes a very long time to do manually. They make sure that all and only the works that you cited in your text are included in your bibliography. So that saves so much time, especially if you are writing a thesis. The amount of time I spent trying to manually check that I had all my citations in my bibliography, and my bibliography didn't have any sources that were not cited in my dissertations. I can't even begin to imagine how much time that took me. And I made more mistakes. So I missed sources. So the last thing that these resources do is they reduce those mistakes. If I had been using a referencing software, my bibliography, even for a 400-page thesis, would have had all and only the works that should have been there. So they store your resources, insert citations, manage bibliographies, and in the process, they save you time and cut down on errors. If you're doing a lot of writing, this is an incredible time saver, not to mention the fact that it reduces errors in your work. So what are the best referencing tools? What are the best apps for referencing? Don't claim to be an expert here because I really have only used a handful, so I'll talk to the ones I know. But basically speaking, there are two kinds of referencing tools, namely built-in apps and plug-in apps. Built-in apps are the referencing tools that are built into word processors like Microsoft Word and Google Docs. These come with built-in referencing tools, but at least at this stage, they are still fairly rudimentary. Quite possibly by the time you're watching this, those programs will have dramatically improved their referencing tools and they'll be the preferred option. But for now, they're fairly rudimentary. They only allow you to use author date referencing methods and generally are inferior to plug-in apps. So plug-in apps are third-party apps that plug into your other tools. They plug into your word processor typically. And at present, they are far, far more powerful than the built-in ones that come in apps like Word and Google Docs. My personal preference in this space is Zotero. Zotero is just amazing. I do a lot of writing and it saves me hours and hours of referencing, looking up sources, trying to figure out exactly how to format each bibliography entry, etc. I don't need to type the information because I capture it once into Zotero and then I can import it perfectly into a Word document or a Google document. And Zotero provides great flexibility. I can choose any referencing style I want. It has a wide repertoire. I can choose whether I want to do footnote style referencing or author date style referencing. And then once I've captured a citation, I can customize it any way that I want. So Zotero, completely free app, worth having a look at. If you're doing a lot of writing, it's a must-have and will save you lots and lots of time and prevent some of the common mistakes we make just because human error creeps into our referencing. If you've made it all the way to this stage of the video, thank you for sticking with us. In conclusion, in primary school, you used to get organized for the school year by buying pencils, erasers, coloring pencils, workbooks, and so on. And if you didn't have those tools, you were compromised in your ability to learn. In the modern world, the tools that you need are not so much pencils and pencil crayons and erasers and pencil sharpeners. They are stationary software, if we could call it that. They are learning softwares that allow you to learn more effectively and efficiently. And you need tools that will empower you for time management, note-taking, reviewing, and if you're at tertiary program level, for referencing sources. Selecting and installing the tools that you need is the first step in that process. And then once you have them, you can learn how to use them properly and commit to doing it. We will, throughout the remainder of this course, be reviewing some of the softwares that we've recommended and helping you to see how you can use those to enhance your own learning journey. Hope that's helpful. I'd encourage you to check out the ones that we've looked at and to start to think about what you'll use for managing your time well, for taking good notes, for reviewing those notes, and if you're writing a lot, for referencing your sources.